Howdy folks, Spencer here, and in this video today I'm going to show you the process of an operation that I took a couple weeks ago in an attempt to take out the fleet that you see on the screen now. This fleet is about 60 million points, or worth about 16 billion resources, and it is one that the target was keeping actively on a moon of theirs. So you're going to see the process that I went through identifying the target and setting up to try and take out their fleet. As always, chapters will be listed down below for those of you that want to skip to different parts. And at the end of this video, I'm going to be doing a summary of the gains and losses for both sides of the combat, and also what you can take away from this video, as in how to better protect your fleet and how to identify players who are making mistakes with some of their fleet saves. And before we get too far into things, I do want to quickly mention that there is an OGame affiliate link down in the description below. It is the hero.li/ogame-casual sablink. If you are looking to start up on a brand new universe, whether you are a new player or an existing player, if you can hit that link and click the play for free now button on that page within 24 hours ahead of you starting up on a new universe, that will greatly help me out. And if you do want to try starting up on a new universe, there are some that are going to be starting up around the time this video goes live on Friday, April 21st. And some of these new universes have some new mechanics enabled. These new mechanics are deuterium into the debris field. So traditionally, when you have a ship combat, only the metal and crystal values of ships is sent to the debris field. With this setting enabled, then the deuterium is also sent to the debris field. And the other change here that they're trying out on some of these servers is the ability to skip over empty or inactive systems with your fleet. So if that is enabled on your universe, and you can see which ones have that functionality based on the notes down here, the ones marked with gold have both of these settings turned on. But if that setting is turned on, then if you want to attack someone 100 systems away from you, but 90 of the systems between you and the target are empty or only have inactive players, then the actual flight time and deuterium cost would be the same as if they were only 10 systems away. So both of these settings should make it a bit more interesting from a combat point of view. And if you're wanting to try those out, then definitely check out those universes that start up later today. Now let's get back to the video. Okay, so I have been watching this target player now for the past couple of days, and basically after I moved in to this universe, they freaked out because one of my planets was right next to where they were normally fleet saving, and they have shifted their fleet over to the same location now for the past week basically. And I've been watching them, and I think I have the time locked down. So what I'm going to do is I have a colony ship en route with some cargoes that will be colonizing the slot 14 right next to their planet here. It will be landing at a time frame that they have not been on for the past couple of days, and hopefully that holds true here tonight. And if all goes to plan, I will be having this colony ship land about 10 hours after I record this little bit here, and I will immediately build a shipyard, build a rocket launcher, get the moonshots done, and then I'm going to insta-build a jump gate and sensor phalanx on the moon that I get above that planet, and I am immediately going to proceed to start the process of blowing up their moon. It is a fairly large moon, so it is going to cost a bit Death Star wise, but I'm going to do a forced MD, which means I will have a 100% moon destruction chance, and hopefully everything goes to plan, but we'll find out here in a little bit. Okay, so Defender's fleet was last spotted around 5:15, leaving the moon that he's fleet saving on. Now, there's a couple different potentials, and I haven't exactly given myself a ton of time to work with here, but I should hopefully have a moon here in just a moment. There we go, first try. So now that I've got that moon, I am going to spam some cargoes up there and get a jump gate very quickly built out. Okay, so got the moon set up quickly, and I used a couple of the time items to go through and get this moon set up real quick. I can now go through and send out the moon destruction mission here. Now, I have a couple different options for how to do this, but I'm going to go with uh, I mean, I could do it properly where I then force the moon pop, or I can just get this done as fast as possible. And I think I'm going to opt for that, given that the defender hasn't logged on in this time frame for the past 3 to 4 days. And I want to explain quickly what I was just talking about there. There's a couple different approaches that you'll typically see when people talk about blowing up a moon. The first is a budget approach where you're going to send your Death Stars on waves that have like a 15 to 25% chance to blow up the moon. And then you might send a final wave that has a 100% chance if the first couple fail. That is an approach that can certainly work, but sometimes when you're going after a target that you just know is going to be on that moon, you really just want to guarantee it's going to happen, and that's where a proper 100% moon destruction approach comes in. And with a proper moon destruction approach there, where you're doing multiple waves of 100% chance, you're going to have them timed within like a second or two of each other. Ideally, you would have one timed at second 1, a second wave timed at second 2, and a third timed at second 3. And you want to make sure to also send your combat fleet in as like a clearing wave that's going to arrive at the same time as the second of those 3 waves in that example. Just make sure that you're not sending any combat fleet alongside your Death Stars on a moon destruction mission. If you send your combat fleet out with the second wave in an approach like this, and you send your combat fleet out on the actual moon destruction mission, if the Death Stars blow up, you lose your entire fleet. So make sure your clearing wave, which is your actual combat forces that you're sending to clear out anything there, are arriving on their own ACS attack and not as part of the moon destruction. You could very much risk a lot if you make that mistake there. And the third approach is basically what I did here, where you're going to send one wave at 100%, and a second also at like 100% speed with 100% chance as fast as you can click through the window. Ideally, you don't want to do this, and it really left me vulnerable. But if you're absolutely confident in your target's online times, which I felt I was, and then later was sort of hesitant about, but this really isn't the approach you want to do. It can work if you're lucky, but the proper approach is the best approach if you're wanting to absolutely take out their moon. Okay, so it's been a couple hours now, and there hasn't been any new activity from the target player. I did have to go in and hit them with one espionage probe to get a debris field created. So there was a little bit of activity from that, but that was from me, not from them. So we are about half an hour out now from my Death Stars hitting their planet. Now, I did make a mistake when doing these Death Stars. I should have done one at like 90% and then done the other one at like 95 or 100 to try and get them so that they were closer together. As is, the first moon destruction mission here is going to be 10 seconds ahead of my second one. Now, I don't think the defender's going to get on in this time frame based on the information that I have, so I think I'm going to be in the clear. But to be safe, I am going to be sending out a clearing fleet. So the second moon shot, or the second moon destruction, will happen 10 seconds later, but a second before that, I'm going to have a fleet of my own going in and just hitting anything that could potentially be sent to that planet to try and, or that moon to try and defend it. Now, again, I don't think that's going to happen, but that is always something you want to be cautious of when you're doing a moon destruction, is that someone could try to ninja you. And by sending out a clearing wave, by having your moon destructions really close together, ideally a bit closer than what I did here, because a 10-second gap is not really good. But if you can get it to within 3 seconds of each other and you have a fleet in between them, then that is extremely difficult for people to counter. So I am going to go ahead now and send a clearing wave here. I already have an ACS fleet set up. I'm going to turn OG Light off for this. OG Light's been having some weird issues on some of my fleet pages. And I've already simmed out the clearing wave. In the event that his fleet did appear there, this clearing wave would be able to take it out. Now, based on the information I have, I think that his fleet will be landing on his planet or on his moon 2 to 4 hours after the moon destruction happens. So there's plenty of time for this fleet to go out, cover the moon destruction, get back, and then relaunch for the attack on his actual fleet. So let's get this launched out. I'm gonna set this up here, and you can see it is going to be a couple minutes faster than that ACS, so it's not going to slow it down. And let's go ahead and launch it. And as you see, no impact on the ACS timing because it was timed for before, or like that there was enough time there. Now I need to send the recyclers out. I don't need to send all of them out. In fact, for this, I'm gonna take a little bit of a risk, only send like 750k out. Again, it's highly unlikely that the defender will be able to. I don't think the defender's even going to be on at all in that time frame. So, let's see here, 23, 49, 28. Let's wait here for 20 seconds, and then I'll launch this when the timer goes to 28. And those recyclers should now be, yeah, just behind the moon destructions and everything else. So I could have sent all my recyclers, but again, I don't think it's needed. I don't think that the defender is going to be on in this time frame, and I do not think that any of their allies are going to be able to do anything in this time frame either, because his nearest allies are over here about 8 systems away, and they are also currently offline. They all are European, and these US evening hours, they're typically offline, so I don't think they're even going to have their fleets on the ground to support him in an ACS defense when I go for his actual fleet here in a little bit. But we'll find out in T-minus 1 minute here. Now, the defender has still not logged in, so my timing and information there was right. And me sending in the clearing wave and the secondary moon destruction looks like it wasn't necessary, and likely the recyclers also probably weren't necessary for this. Now, they could have done a debris field, like a harvest fleet save, but based on watching them the past few days, I'm more inclined to believe that they've went with a colonization fleet save, which means that their fleet should be on the ground about 2 hours from now. But let's watch this moon destruction happen. As soon as I see the moon blow up, I'm going to go through and recall everything else. Go to galaxy view here. Perfect. Let me recall the rest. Called. So that moon is destroyed. Let me go through and scan his planet now. And sure enough, my timing was... So the colonization fleet saves a little bit different than I expected, but that is well within the time frame that I can go through and get it done. The difference is I was calculating based on him going to slot 14, and it looks like he did a colonization fleet save to slot 1. So I'm going to go through now and get an ACS set up for a second after this fleet would land, and then I'm going to go from there. Okay, so it is been a little bit of time now. The attack is still an hour out, but there is still a brief window for the defender to have some of their allies that are a couple systems away come over and help defend against my fleet. Now, the Chosen One has a fairly large military and could actually cause my fleet to take quite a bit of damage. However, while their fleet is on the ground, it looks like they aren't actually online. So that may be a target to look at in a future hit that I do. But there is a window where the Chosen One could jump his fleet over to this moon, which is 8 systems away, and then go in and ACS defend Furian here. Now that time is very quickly going down. That window of opportunity will go away in about 15 minutes for them. And Furian himself isn't even on by the time that I expected. So it looks like on Furian's part, he may have slept in or thought that he was safe to not log in for a little bit longer, given that his fleet was still on that fleet save. So I have a ACS attack scheduled for exactly 1 second after his fleet would land, and I'm going to follow some recommendations that I got from Mr. Lyle and split up my fleet here. So if the Chosen One does come over and defend, I would actually still profit quite a bit. So even if he does pop on and sees that I'm hitting his ally, I don't think he's going to jump in and help because he would be losing a good chunk of his fleet in the process. But he does have a little bit of a window. You see the flight time for him would be about an hour and a minute. If he swapped over to a general, that'd go down to 56 minutes. But a reminder, this fleet is now an hour and 8 minutes out. So I've done sims with his allies coming in and defending, and also just my fleet versus his, with this split fleet technique that Lyle was telling me about, where you split up the different types of ships you have. So you throw in some of your heavier ships in the first wave. The second wave is some of the like medium ships that hit pretty hard but aren't as survivable. And then you do a final wave that just has a lot of your like fodder type things. So I'm giving that a go. In the Sims here, it looks like it actually works out better. And I'll let you guys know if his ally comes in and ends up helping him out. But that window, even as I'm recording this, is very quickly ticking away. And Furian himself isn't on. And if I go and look at the Chosen One's moon nearby, the activity timer is going up on it, meaning that he hasn't, like, his fleet landed, but he hasn't actually touched the moon. So everything's looking good so far, and I'll keep you guys posted. The window of opportunity for the Defender's allies to come in and assist him has pretty much now fully ended. There's nobody that can get here fast enough to help him out in this combat. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to send a slightly smaller initial wave, and then I'm going to do some follow-up hits in the following second so that I can get some additional resources out of the res that he is carrying on his transports. If I can even get a second wave in, then that is going to be very beneficial for me. Now, for recycler timing, I am going to go through and set up like probably 1,000,000 recyclers for second, so 01, 04, 03, so the third second there. And then I'll probably just double up because I'm getting so much deuterium off of this hit anyways that I'll just send another million for like a second or two afterwards in case he like goes through and spams a ton of money into the game to build some defenses or something like that. But so far, he hasn't even logged on. So let's get the recyclers timed here. So I'm gonna just go in like I'm doing an attack. I'm gonna do a million recyclers. I only need like 800k per the sim, but I just always like to send a little bit extra, and it's the same system, so it's dirt cheap. So I'm gonna aim for 10403, which means I need to wait another minute here, about 2 minutes for the timing to align. So you'll I'll stop this recording and then you guys will skip ahead to see everything timed up perfectly right. Okay, so I'm going to go through and start getting the first ACS attack out, and I'm going to follow the wave thing that Lyle was telling me to do, where I send my heavier ships first, then the medium ones, and then the fodder last. So in the sims, that seems to have been working out quite fine. So I'm going to go through and do that here now. So let me move this over. And the second wave, so I've already got the heavy ones out, and the second wave is going to be my cruisers and bombers. So I'm going to send those. I'm going to keep the battleships held back and use them for a third wave, just so that they can get some more resources. For the second wave, I am going to use my 400k Pathfinders, which should be fine. So here is the second wave. And there's plenty of time. I'm just leaving these go at 100%. Like, it's not impacting the ACS speed at all there. So we have 2 fleets out so far. And then the last wave here, per his recommendation, would be my light fighters and heavy fighters. So let me go and do that. And let me do that a little bit slower. I mean, nobody's going to be able to respond, especially if my Death Star's here. But if I could save a little bit of deuterium, I guess the overall theme of this attack has been that I just haven't really cared about my deuterium. Let's go with that. So if I look here, we can see that that has not impacted the arrival time at all. You can see 18 million ships arriving in the second afterwards. And then I'm going to set up at 0403 here my 400k Pathfinders. So I need to go in and make that that large cargo one. I need to make that a fleet union. Let's turn that into an ACS. And I need to see what its ID is. So I'll take a picture of this quick. I want to send out my Pathfinders to the one that is 861006. So I'm going to go like this and select the right ACS, and then I'm going to let them go. Now there's again a little bit of time here. I can send those at a much slower speed. So let's go like that. And there is the first and second wave. Now let me get the final wave set up at 0404. So I'm gonna hit a small cargo, 15. And I'm just gonna wait 30 seconds, and when I see that this goes above 02 or 03, that's when I'll hit the button to attack here. The thing with all this type of stuff is just being patient. That's always the key, especially in a game like this. You just be patient and wait for the timer to go to the time that you're looking for. Attacking now. So that is going to go at 06. That's fine. I have a small set of recyclers going in afterwards. I would prefer to have this hit a little bit up, but realistically, it's probably not going to matter in this situation. So I'm going to do the exact same thing here. I'm going to find that small cargo I just launched, and I'm going to hit Union. And the fleet ID that did was 1113. Always make sure you're noting down your ACS numbers if you're doing multiple at a time, because you don't want to send the wrong thing in the wrong hit. So I'm going to do the exact same thing here. And let's go here. 1113. And I'll just do the same thing here, slow it down just a smidge. There we go. And just like that, I now have 3 waves set up. The defender is still not online, so they haven't reacted at all to anything that's happened yet. Maybe my timing was off. The past couple of days they were on as of like an hour ago, but obviously that's not the case today. They do have some of their allies on, so if I go back to G4 here, you can see like the Chosen One, he's got activity on his moon there, but he did. I don't think he's even noticed that I took out his ally's moon. And if I go and scan Korean again here, you see that there's no ACS defense. So I think that this is hopefully gonna be fine. And we'll find out here in half an hour. Okay. The attack is just over a minute out, so I'm gonna just show how it progresses as it plays out here. And everything is timed right. There might be a little bit of server lag. There usually is with some of these larger fights from what I understand, so it might take a moment for things to show up, but I may not even see the debris field sitting there because I have recyclers landing exactly 1 second after the main attack and then another set a second later. So I most likely won't even see the debris field on screen because it should disappear pretty much instantly. And one last check here. The defender has not come online, so they probably overslept, which makes this entire process quite a bit easier for me. And their allies definitely seem to be a bit active there, but they haven't actually tried to do anything. I think they just realized that they probably were too late to really do anything. 10 seconds. I'm going to spam my left and right arrow keys here so we can see some of that activity. Oh yeah, she's lagging. Definitely laggy there. You see the attacks are still processing. So there we go. That should be it now. And if I go look at my messages, well, first let's make sure the recyclers actually got what they were going for. Yep, the recyclers got that. And I also have some wreckage that I will be able to get back. So let me take a look at the combat reports here. Here is the first wave. And remember, I broke the ships up, so it was a few different waves from myself there. So got everything, and resource-wise, what was he carrying? I got 1.4 billion deuterium out of that. So his, not only did I get his fleet, I also got all the resources his fleet was carrying. And if I go to the second attack here, see, I got quite a bit of deuterium out of that. There was no rec field created for me, which I thought there would be, but... And for the final wave here, again, there's no rec field for me. But you can see overall this set of attacks was quite profitable for me. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to send these all over to Ogacha, and then I'll come back with what the finalized numbers are for what my total profit and my losses were. And before I get to that, I always like to look at the high scoreboard right after a hit, because it takes a little bit for your ranking to actually be adjusted. So we can see that this attacker or the defender lost 50, just under 57 million points, and that will drop them quite a bit in the rankings. So before this, they were ranked 14, and now they're going to be down to, yeah, they'll be like 20th, 19th or 20th here. So quite a bit of a hit for them, but they can recover from that if they play things right. And now let's take a look at the gains and losses on both sides. So looking at the Ogacha report, you can see that the gains for me were quite substantial, plus 33 billion, and a 64 billion loss for the defender. However, Ogacha is not factoring in the fact that I lost about 276 Death Stars. When you destroy a moon, there is a chance that you will have your Death Stars blow up when they blow the moon up. And sometimes they'll blow up without blowing the moon up if you don't send that 100% chance. So, unfortunately, I did lose the 276 Death Stars, which is not reflected in the numbers that you see here. So when I made a forum post for this, I did adjust the numbers to include the Death Stars being lost, and also to include the return that I got from the rec field from being a general class. The space dock building meant that I was able to recover some of the attacking forces that I had lost because I was a general, and the planet or the moon that I had launched from was above a planet that had a space dock built. So if you factor in those losses and the return from the rec field, I ended up gaining about 18 billion metal, about 12.5 billion crystal, and 1.5 billion deuterium. So all in all, I gained just under 32 billion resources, and I gained about 4 million honor points. The defender lost 33 billion metal, 23 billion crystal, and almost 8 billion deuterium. So they took quite a bit of a hit there. And they are still playing the game. I know that that's something that people always worry about when an attack happens. This defender is still playing the game. They seem to have not fully learnt their lesson though. They're still fleet saving in a very similar format from what I've seen, which means that they are extremely vulnerable to a similar attack in the future. But you can see here that they took quite a bit of a loss. They have since recovered a little bit, and I believe they were playing as a Discoverer, so with them playing as a Discoverer class, you can recover quite a bit faster if you're active in spamming those expeditions out. But their military has not really recovered at all in the time since. Their total ship points went from about 53.5 million before the hit down to just under 10 million, and that really hasn't changed too much now in the past couple of weeks. So I mean they're getting a little bit of growth, but they are still a far way from getting back to the point they were before that attack. So now let's go in and take a look at what lessons you should take from this video and what would have saved the defender. You know, what could the defender have done better? What could I have done better? So let's go take a look at that. And now we're at the point where I go over what exactly went wrong for the defender, what could they have done better, and what could I have done better. So let's recap, how I found the target. Well, the target was fleet saving from the same moon consistently for a week. They had no other moons anywhere nearby, and that's a pretty big indicator that they're probably not doing a fleet save that is very secure. Another thing is they were in a system basically by themselves. There was one other random player in there, but they didn't have a safe like a safe system set up, which is what you see with this picture here, where this is an entire system filled. And for Mr. Lyle here, he can bounce his fleet back between those two moons if he wants, and he doesn't have the same risk like that the target had here, because it's a full system. Someone can't move in and do a very fast moon destruction. If you're in a safe system like this, and if someone wants to do a moon destruction against you, it takes a lot longer because they have to send their moon or their Death Stars over a system. So if they have to send those Death Stars, from another system, that's easily increasing the time by a couple hours, giving you a massive amount of time to respond. If it takes 6 hours for Death Stars to go from an external system, then that gives you a lot more time to respond versus what happened in this video. So what the defender could have done better is they could have had two moons close together where they were doing deployment fleet saves back and forth between those moons. Almost every high-end fleet that is out there nowadays is doing something like that. And most of them, ideally, are going to be set up in a safe system, again, like this picture, where they'll have their fleet, on this moon, and then they'll do a deployment fleet save to send it to their other moon. And then the nice thing about deployment fleet saves is if you recall it, if that deployment is recalled before the other moon is blown up or whatever, then it won't show up on the sensor phalanx. Once a deployment fleet is recalled, it's invisible to the sensor phalanx. So, if you're really wanting to protect your fleet, you have two moons close together and you're doing deployments all the time, and you're going to be recalling them ideally before you go to bed or whatever, so that you don't have to worry about someone blowing up your moon. And that's basically what every high-end fleet does in the current state of the game. So if the defender had done that, they would obviously have been much more secure. And they could have also literally just not used the same moon every single night. If they wanted to do what they were doing, they could have done it a lot more successfully, just going and using a different moon each night. Like if someone's doing an improper fleet save, but they have like 14 moons and they're using a different one every night, that makes it much more difficult for someone to go in and do what I did. And again, them using that same moon, really strong indicator that that's where their fleet's going to be. And as you saw, sure enough, as soon as I popped that moon, that was where their fleet was. So what could I have done better? Number one, to me, is definitely the moon destructions. Being that was the core of the hit, me not going in and properly timing those to be like a couple seconds out from each other, that was a really poor decision. I was lucky in this case and it didn't have really any negative consequence. But moving forward, I just that's something like if you're going through all this effort to pop a moon, you've made a mobile colony and you're trying to pop a moon, you really want to do it proper, because if you screw up, that's it. That's basically your one shot to do it at that target at that time. And if you fail to pop a moon or whatever, doing something like I did right there, that target's going to be so spooked. They're going to be moving their fleet far, far away, and they're going to be addressing some of the errors they made to try and prevent you from having another attempt. So when you're in a situation like this, you really want to be in that mentality of get it right the first time, because there probably won't be a second. So I should have better timed that, and I probably could have saved a little bit of deuterium, had I not kept spamming out so many recyclers. the second wave of like 1 million recyclers I sent out picked up nothing. So, I could have saved a little bit of deuterium here or there, but at the end of the day, I think my fuel cost for all of these fleet actions was like probably under like 2 to 300 million deuterium, and I got over 1.5 billion from the hit. So overall, I could have definitely been a bit more economical with the fleets I was sending out, especially the recyclers. But I think in this situation, especially being on a universe that has just 50% deuterium cost, I think it all worked out fine. And I'm not too worried about the couple extra million deuterium loss here or there. So overall, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope that there was some useful information here that you can take away to better protect your fleet and to maybe identify some of the other targets out there on your universes. But that's going to be it for this video. Thank you all for tuning in. See you guys around.